welcome, want to really welcome everybody today. And I am Trisha Bennett. I'll say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, because that's fun to do. I don't know where you are in the world. If people want to say hi in the chat and let us know where you are in the world, we'd love to welcome you. I am one of the founders circle of Shaman's Directory, and this is one of the very first of what we hope will be many, many more live Shaman's Directory Zooms. We are open to all shamanic healers, teachers, and friends. Anyone who's curious about shamanism is welcome to attend, as well as people who are deep into the practice as a way of life. So we welcome you all. And hi, Mogadi from South Africa. Great to have you here. Everyone's waving. That's really cute. I love it when people wave to each other on Zoom. So the topic today is exploring Mesa artistry, and I will introduce Wake Wheeler to you in a few minutes. But first, I just want to take a minute to tell you a little bit about Shaman's Directory. So we are a brand new online portal for shamanic services that will be launching within the next few weeks. And we are fairly different from anything that already exists in the world of shamanism. If you're familiar with platforms like BetterHelp and Psychology Today and Therapy Tribe, things like that, where you can book an online appointment with a therapist, this is going to be an international professional directory of shamanic healers and teachers from Indigenous, First Nation, European backgrounds, including certificate licensed shamanic practitioners. So the whole gamut of shamanism from every nook and cranny of the planet will be represented, and you can make an appointment. So you can, I like to say that the perfect healer for you might be on the other side of the planet. And the beautiful thing about energy medicine is that there's no distance in the field, right? So a healing with you sitting right next to you is going to be just as effective as a healing on screen with somebody who's 5,000 miles away. So it's just this really beautiful way to connect with the kind of healing that the planet really needs right now. And so we are incredibly honored to have a huge contingency of ambassadors from Indigenous and First Nation communities that are actually coming on board and supporting this as an online platform for finding healing around the planet and for bringing us all together around one fire. So it feels pretty monumental, and we're all super excited about it. And our website is shamansdirectory.com. It's pretty easy to remember. And we're Shaman's Directory on social media and on YouTube, which is where these events will be posted at the end of the day after they've happened. And so we encourage you to let anybody know who's interested in either receiving shamanic healing or offering it to visit the website. And right now at the bottom of the homepage, there's a button that says join our community. And if you join the community, it means you put your name and your email address in. We will let you know as soon as we're ready to accept profiles. We were hoping to have been launched last month, but it turns out that creating a directory is a big job, and the back end of the website is a monster. And so we have 2 web builders working full time to try to get it to work. And so it'll maybe a couple more weeks, but we've been assured that it's already done in the energetic field. In the future, it already exists. So we're just allowing it to unfold to where it already exists, and it's beautiful and functioning somewhere in the future. So anyway, thank you all for being here. We're delighted to have you at this event. If you visit us on YouTube, there's only one other video there, which is our fire with the Maasai. We had a fire ceremony with the Maasai around the holidays, and so you can see that as well. So thanks for being here. And I'm going to introduce Wake Wheeler. And Wake is somebody that I met, I don't know, a year ago, something like that. And he is just an amazing teacher. And I like to say in an earlier incarnation in this lifetime, he was a lawyer. And he started studying energy medicine and took a trip to Peru. And he says he never turned back. And one of his sort of most delightful realizations or things that he learned about in life was learning about the Mesa, the Andean medicine bundle. And it has really become a very significant part of his life and his teaching. And he spent a lot of time in Peru studying with Pacos there, which he'll tell you more about. And he also supports several communities of weavers in the Andes. So he has this beautiful relationship with cloth and stone. He has, I think I found Wake through his Facebook page, which is called The Transcending Mesa. And it has the most gorgeous images of cloth and stone. And when I saw his images, I thought I have to meet whoever it is that's posting these images because they're so gorgeous that whoever the spirit is behind these photographs, I need to know who that is. So I want to welcome Wake today. Thank you so much for your bringing us your time. You're giving us your time and your munai. And I will turn it over to you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Tricia.
Sure.
What a delight to be with a global IU. In the old days, before Zoom, we met in person. And it worked, but this is really a new opportunity and an opportunity of the present and an opportunity of the future. So to be able to weave all the energies together is so potent and so beautiful. I'm a tactile person. And so in the classes that we would be engaged in person or with the Caro down in Peru, there'd be a lot of touching. There'd be a lot of holding. There'd be a lot of fragrances of the Andes and the cloth. And I think that's probably the only thing that we're missing now. And yet the global reach more than makes up for it. So what I wanted to do today was to have a little bit of experience, a little bit of sharing, some questions, some exploration. We're all on this path of spirit. And we've all come together in the form of an IU. When I was thinking about Mesa artistry, when I dove in a little bit more deeply, it's all based on Mesa energy. We hold energy bundles. We're the ones who are the stewards of the medicine now. And just at the very beginning, when I was tuning in this morning, I heard Naomi and Tricia talk about their stones. And they, of course, you know, nobody follows the rules exactly. And that's part of the point. But when we say Sharakuya, they, of course, had two each to begin with. And I'd like to just begin with that. I wonder if you have your bundles there or an altar close by, some stones that attract you, and whether you were intending to share the stones together in the IU or not, just allow yourself a moment to let your hands reach out to two stones that fit in your hands and that feel compatible in some way. Are you willing to play along?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, okay. So here's what we want to do. The two stones, and I went to Peru 22 years ago. It was before I knew any classes or anything. And I went with my family. And, you know, the Caro then were differently seen. They were seen as outcasts. They weren't allowed in the city. In Cusco, when I met them, we had to meet in an alley, and they were wearing their ponchos, and they couldn't go into the hotels. You could barely be seen with them without derision. And so there has been such a transformation of the respect for the medicine keepers, the medicine stewards, and we are that now. Don Francisco Chura Flores, one of my teachers, just said to take in the medicine and make it your own and share it without question. And so there is this idea that there's this flow of energy coming through us that we're meant to understand and we're meant to share. So let's start with these. And Don Francisco always used to, whenever we'd go visiting a sacred site, he takes two stones and tap them together. And it would be a recognition of the sacred nature of the site and also a calling to let the sacred come in. So let's just for a moment take our two stones, whatever you've chosen for this particular part of this morning and or this day, and tap them together lightly. And breathe your breath of spirit within them. Tukumunanil, total power of love. Tukuyachanil, the total power of right wisdom. Tukuyankainil, the total power of the right way. And just so we're all here together, take your stones and just rub them just ever so lightly on your luminous field. And just to release anything, any hucha, anything that's getting in the way of us being truly present and available for the lineage to speak through us. Taking deep breaths, letting go, paying special attention to any areas that feel like they need cleansing or clearing. Letting the luminous field be refreshed, letting anything that gets in the way be released, opening up to being touched by spirit, letting the energy of the lineage flow through. Refreshing, making available, being present with our stones, with our Mesa stewardship. Whatever spirit path we're on, there's a core to it. Accessing that core, bringing the core of the spiritual calling, letting it fill the luminous field, letting it permeate every cell of the body, letting it naturally radiate out into the world, into the Kausai Pacha, the time and space of living energy, the energy place we live in and inhabit right now. We are the stewards of this lineage. Not only do we hold the Mesa, we hold the lineage in its spread around the world. We hold each lineage that we're a part of. We're awakening by our presence with each other and by our stewardship of the Mesa. We're awakening a deep knowing within us. We're remembering who we really are on this journey of spirit. We're bringing forth the knowledge that has been hidden. We've come away from what we truly know, and now we come back to it in new, fresh ways. We are the stewards. We're reawakening the indigenous nature of our soul and sharing that with one another. That's the purpose of the Mesa, to remember. It's the purpose of the Mesa to connect. It's the purpose of the Mesa to explore. One last time, acknowledging the presence, acknowledging this moment, releasing, cleansing, energizing. And one last time at the heart, bringing your stones to the heart. Tuku Munai Neok. Tuku Munai Neok. Tuku Munai Neok. The total power of love. Tuku Ya Neok. Tuku Ya Neok. Tuku Ya Neok. The stones up at the head. The total power of wisdom and vision. And now to the solar plexus. Tuku Yang Kai Neok. Tuku Yang Kai Neok. Tuku Yang Kai Neok. The total power of walking in alignment with the heart, guided by the pure vision. Deep breath. Coming together in our circle. Feeling the love that lives within us. Sensing the Munai we share. Sensing the path that's strengthened by our relationships with one another. Tahoe. So it's all about the Kausai Pacha, the land, the space, the time of living energy. And we share that. And Tricia, I just have to say how thankful I am to have connected with you and become aware of the global Ayu that you're nurturing. And just what a significance it is now, even now, before we're formally signed up, you know, even now, just knowing that we're each doing our own work in our own way in each place of the world. And just to get this part out of the way, I feel like we're all equal here. You know, when we took our place at the fire, whether we were involved with the Mesa stewardship by the Four Winds or some other initiatory process, or whether we're following a different path and have an interest in the stewardship of cloth and stone. We took our place at the fire that was always held for us. We have that place now to embody, to express, to share. And we each have our different experiences, but we're united in the spiritual quest. And I'm honored to be shown the way of the Mesa. I'm honored that it unites us in a certain way, and I respect each of the explorations. So we can have just a moment to share if there's anything that wants to be said. And then I originally called the talk Mesa Show and Tell. Of course, Tricia put the kibosh on that. It wasn't it wasn't sophisticated enough. So we went to Mesa Artistry and the energy behind it. But really, the idea is to share some part of our spiritual path with one another. And that's the idea. You know, it is possible that I could talk for a couple hours and actually, you know, share some things that might be useful. But I just thought it would be much more useful if we shared from our own experiences and got the benefit to each other of some part of our spiritual quest. So is there anything that wants to be shared at this point before we invite more Mesa? Okay, I'm going to say it, show and tell.
I actually love the name Mesa Show and Tell, but I didn't want to offend anybody who might not feel that that was serious enough for their Mesa. I didn't want to offend any stones, but
that is a problem. Like, some of my work is not serious. I don't know. That is a problem. But the Mesa, you know, it's like we were talking earlier, Tricia, is that the Karo engage in their ceremonies very intentionally, very seriously, and yet they have fun and joy even within the ceremony, before the confetti goes on the head. So, and I was just talking to one of my teachers the other day, Wilbert Salas, and I said, what about the mesa? You know, like it's mesa, it's Misha. Mesa sounds like table. You know, that doesn't sound very Quechuan to me. And he said, well, you know, number one, mesa is good for us because the connection or the relationship with table is nice and appropriate. In effect, when we open our mesas, we open our table or set the table for spirit. And so we're inviting in the divine or inviting in spirit whenever we bring out our mesas, whenever we open them up. The other beauty of opening up the mesa, and I know people have different feelings about this. Many mesas stay closed. Several people want to have an open relationship with their mesa. And what we were taught long ago is the mesa mastai, this mesa mastai, and that is descriptive of the opening of the mesa. And the lore goes that every time we open our mesa, we organize the energetic world. We organize our world in a micro sense, and we put a tiny bit of organized energy into the universe itself, into the Kausai Pacha. So we are doing world work every time we open our mesa. And you could say we're doing world work every time we take our mesa and bring it to our heart or bring it to our breath or bring it to our awareness in some way. But I just want to read you this. This was new to me when Wilbert we were talking about the mesa, Misha, medicine bundle. What should it be? He said, Hatun Ilya Kipu. Hatun, H-A-T-U-N, means great. Ilya, I-L-L-Y-A, means light. So Hatun Ilya Kipu, K-H-I-P-U. Kipu is the knotted string. So Hatun Ilya Kipu means this is the great woven light. That's how he senses it. The great woven light is that our bundles are held, our special kuyas, our favorite stones, are held in a fabric of some kind. And that altogether that bundle is woven energy, a great woven light. So I love that. I've never heard it before. You know, over 20 years of delving into this again and again and again, many trips to Peru, and I'm sure we all have equivalent experience with the way we found this. But there are new ways of expressing the medicine that are shared all the time. And again, I think that's one of the benefits of a global IU, that we aren't, the other thing I was told was to learn the processes, to learn the relationship with the medicine, soul retrieval, extractions, illuminations, whatever you're called to, and then make it your own. And then make it your own. Because that is what the place at the fire we're holding invites us to do, even demands us to do, is to create over time our own relationship with a cloth and stone, this Hatun Ilya Kipu.
Wait, could I ask you to spell that one more time so I can put it in the chat?
Yeah, Hatun, H-A-T-U-N, that means big. You know, anytime you say Hatun, you can say your Hatun Kuyas, you know, these are my big medicine stones. Each one of you have Hatun Kuya, you know, big stones. They're big to you. If they're big to you, they're big to me. Ilya. It's like Ilyapa, which is lightning, but it's Ilya, I-L-L-Y-A, Ilya, light. We're the stewards of light. And Kipu, K-H-I-P-U, K-H-I-P-U. And the Kipu was, you probably remember this or you know it, that it is the woven string that the Chasqui runners took from town to town to town. And on the threads were little strings that had knots in it. You've heard of those. Those are quipus. And those are the knotted strings that the Quipu Kamayoks, the special shaman of the thread shaman, knew how to interpret. And I love this Hatun Ilya Quipu because we are the Quipu Kamayoks. We are the interpreters of our own medicine. Tricia was sharing before, well, if someone picks one of these stones, I know what they're about because I know what stone they were drawn to. She's a Kamayok. She's breathing life into this, into the stone. For someone else, it could be just a neutral stone, but to her or to each one of us, we have special kuyas, Hatun Ilya, special light that we're the stewards of. We are the stewards of our special light. So anyway, that to me was an awakening. When I heard that 2 days ago, I called Wilbert down in Cusco. I said, hey, Wilbert, I'm going to be, participating in a global IU. What do you want the message to be? Give me some insight. And he said, the world focus is perfect, especially now. We know how much this world focus is necessary. We can do that in our little ways, and that we are the stewards of woven light, that we are the stewards of our own way, our own shamanic way, our own spirit way, and it needs to be shared. So he was all in favor of this. We can get him on sometime and he can share. I wasn't born in the Andes. I was a tarot card reader at the same time that I practiced law. But what I really found so engaging was the tactile nature of this medicine bundle that tells us something about ourselves and tells us something and gives us a whole global community, even before Zoom, a whole global community with which to connect and a lineage throughout time. We aren't the first to have these issues, and there's help there. Just on the other side of the veil, there's help there within these stones. So that's enough for me for now. But needless to say, I love that we're getting together. I love that we each have our own way of approaching the medicine, and we're each stewards of light. And I just learned that 2 days ago. I mean, I knew it, but I didn't know the words for it. Hatun Ilya Quipu. We're the stewards of our great light bundles. So, if anything wants to be shared, I'm up for it. Otherwise, let's start showing each other some of our light. Tricia, what do you say?
I say, if people are ready, if people have kuyas they want to share, that's great. I also, if you want to take a minute just to think about it, if you haven't prepared a thought, maybe just take a minute and ask your kuyas if there's a kuya that wants to share its story or if it has a message for us. So I've been thinking about this for a month. My kuya's already told me who wants to share. But you might want to just take a minute, and if your mesa is not open, just open it up. And if it wants to be opened, of course, this is, Wake and I were talking about this before the presentation, that some people really never open their mesas. Their entire mesa as a bundle is their medicine. And they use the closed mesa as a singular medicine tool. And other people open their mesa, and each item within the mesa, whether it's a stone or something else. Some people keep little bits of, sea glass or jewelry from a grandparent, or little pieces of wood, or there are all kinds of things, herbs that people keep inside of their mesas that all are part of what makes the medicine and what tells the story of their life or their medicine. And so if you want to share something, if something in your mesa wants to share, that's what today is for. And it's really, every time we share with each other, we learn something new. We learn something that helps us to deepen our own medicine and to think about what the mesa is or what our medicine tools are and how to use them. So whatever you share today, just know that it's something that will deepen all of our medicine. And we're already grateful for whatever that is. So if there's anyone who is called to share, and we don't have a huge crowd today, which is great, which means everybody who wants to will have an opportunity to share. And I think what we were thinking is that maybe you'd show us the stone or the item, and then you can either say how it ended up in your mesa, what's the story? Why is it a power object for you? Maybe does it represent a healing that you went through yourself? Something that has been healed within you, or is it something that's specifically in your mesa? Maybe it doesn't have a lot to do with your own healing, but it's something that is a powerful healing tool for other people. So whatever speaks to you, if anyone would like to share, the floor is open.
Okay, good. I'll go first.
Great.
Here's my stone. Can you see it okay if I?
We can.
Yep.
Let me just, yep, that's great. Everybody can put it on speaker view on your own Zoom if you want to. Oh, that's really cute. Perfect.
So
Yep.
it's a pirate with a toque. And it's just the most fabulous stone. It's really like mostly gravel and stuff, but it's very round. So the story is cute. I was walking along the beach, and there's this place where people were encouraged to paint stones and leave messages for people during COVID, little rays of hope and sunshine and things to make people feel better. And this was there on the path. And I was thinking, oh, okay, this has something to do with my soulmate, and maybe I want a pirate. So let's pick that up. So I did. I picked it up and took it home. And then I've kind of forgot about it for a few days. And then I'm looking for it. I can't find it. And I look everywhere, every pocket, everything. Where could I have put that stone? Because it was so cute and I loved it. I thought I couldn't have lost it. So I kept looking and looking, couldn't find it. And then we had an IU that Saturday, and I went and got my mesa. And there it was in my mesa. Now, I have no recollection of putting it in there. I must have, but I don't remember doing it. And there it was in my mesa. I went, oh my God, you want to be part of my medicine. That's so good how it got into my life. So I'm still looking for I don't know, the resonance or the purpose or what it's going to mean in my healing work, but it's here to stay in my mesa. And it's almost like a guardian of the other stones in some way, some sort of catalyst. I'm not even sure what yet, but I just love it. I get it out almost every day and just play with it. So that's my pirate stone story.
Thank you for that sharing. Yeah, I love that. What it reminds me of is, or comes to mind, is Jaguar of the West. Of being a protector. Since you said that, I'm sure there's humor in it too, and it feels like there's deep protection, and that feels important to me.
Yeah, I'll just say also the fact that it showed up and you couldn't find it anywhere, and it was in your mesa, and now you open your mesa every day. How great is that? It's like the little pirate showed up to remind you to open your mesa every day. It's great.
Yeah, I got my soulmate after all. Thanks. I loved hearing that. That was good.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yeah, Mayumi,
I'll
and
share.
then Mayumi, Luce, and Francine.
Because you've got also drawn stone, I thought, to show my stones. I've got like 2 here, and
Wow.
one represents the masculine and one the feminine. And I actually received these 2 stones when I wasn't on my shamanic path yet. It was in 2014 in London. It was one of those critical times, and I sought shamanic healing. So I went to a very skilled practitioner. She's actually also an ambassador of her platform, and we kept contact. And after the second healing, she gave me these two stones. And one is like more like a feminine sort of priest type of stone. And the other one, yeah, feels more like an angel, or I don't know, some creature. And I kept these stones, all throughout the years. And then my shamanic path, of course, started. And I created a few mesas along those years, but these stones never really, asked me to get into one of these mesas. But recently, I'm doing this 2.5-year Pampa Mesa Yok Earth Keeper training. And this Pachamama Mesa basically called for these stones, or these stones really wanted to go in there. So last week, I initiated these stones. And they have particular names. The Machula stone is the masculine, and the Payala stone, which is the feminine. And these stones, you won't really use them in the healing. They're always in your mesa, but there will be later, I will be taught to initiate or transmit karpais. And that's what these are for. So I thought to share that.
I really appreciate that sharing, Naomi. One of the things Wilbert was saying the other day was just like the masculine and feminine, or your version of the complementary pairs, is so important. Man, I said, why is it so important? He said, it's the regeneration of the world. It's the regeneration of energy. So the fact that you have that, and it's in pairs, pairs run through the cosmology, as you well know. And to have a pair of stones that are matched in some way is really a portal or a key to the cosmology itself. And such the importance of, he was saying Yanantin Masinti, of the masculine and feminine qualities in his mesa itself. So he very often pairs up his stones. He very often finds them traveling together. Or Tricia, as you said, well, I know that I was supposed to bring one stone, but maybe they were a little stage fright and they wanted to come together. But they naturally belong. That's what the Karo believe. There's a natural balance within nature, and a natural balance in the regeneration of energy in the world. So it'll be interesting to hear what happens with the development of the stones. When you're talking about initiating them, what do you mean? What are you sensing or thinking about?
Well, during this training, basically, you receive these teachings from the Pacos, and then we bless these stones with our breath and wine, and so they are becoming part of the mesa, and it's basically 2.5-year process to create this mesa. So this is like the 13th and 14th stone, and these stones also represent more the Asianness. So it's kind of the older beings that are always there. So what you're saying about the masculine and feminine, the Yanantan energy probably really makes sense around it. But I still just got them this last week, although I've had them for years. Of course, I need to work with them more, and but they are part of my mesa now, and will probably strengthen that energy of my mesa.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Lucita.
Hi, everyone. I would like to share with you today one of my kuyas is made of basalt. It comes from Arizona, where I was born, and I call this stone the Abuela stone because it came to me by way of my grandmother. They had a plumbing problem when they were digging. They lived in a 4-room adobe house, that they had made with their own hands, and their plumbing, and they put in plumbing and it went bad and they had to dig up the earth. And when they dug it up, they dug up a metate, which is a stone that the indigenous used to grind their corn. And this was part of it. And this is called the mano, because you put it in your hand to grind the corn. And when I was going through my shamanic training and I needed to find a kuya, somehow Spirit spoke to me and said, your abuela, get your abuela stone. I'm like, what are you talking about? I just, it wasn't going through my logical mind. And then one day I was looking through a box and my husband said, what do you want to do with this thing? And it was the metate, and this was sitting right in the center. And I knew that that was it. And I really feel that my abuela sent it to me for this work. I feel that's why I received that, because they offered this metate to anybody in the family and nobody wanted it. And I was like, well, I'll take it. And, this was like 30 years ago. And here it was calling to me. So when I did the work and sent it to the universe, it came back to me with a gift. And the gift was wisdom, to speak with clarity and compassion and kindness. And whenever I work with a client and they choose this stone, they receive clarity about their life. It's amazing how that energy is transferred to them, and how they wake up and they say, oh my gosh, I just realized this about my issue, about why I came to you. So that thread of light, that energy that we hold in our kuyas, everything you were talking about, Wake, it resonated so much with me. But I'm just so grateful to have this from my ancestors. I think it was a gift. Thank you for listening.
It's beautiful. I like the part that no one else wanted it.
I know they're like, what do we want to do with that? Everybody's very contemporary. We're building our contemporary homes, and and I'm like, oh no, I've always been drawn to the organic, ancient, to the old stuff. I like that.
Mhm.
So it was, and I also like that the indigenous people used the stone to grind their corn in the way that I was grinding all the material excess out of my own spirit until I got to the basic food that would nourish me. And the analogy was just quite beautiful.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ah, gorgeous. I love this. Francine?
Hi, everyone. So this is my kuya.
Whoa.
I call this my Phoenix stone. It was gifted to me by an IU member when we were going through training, and it arrived the day we were moving into the north direction. And I decided that this was one of the ones that was going to go into the sand painting for burning the rolls, or removing the rolls that we no longer wish to embody in our lives. And I had a really powerful experience. This was initiated by fire. And to me, it represents the Phoenix. It represents freedom. And I know when my clients choose this stone, that they're ready to move to their next larger transition and shedding old ways of being and old things in their lives. It's a really, really powerful stone. And I pull this one out of my mesa a lot and hold it. I sit and I hold it, and it's I guess one of my favorites, if you can have a favorite.
So Francine, when you hold it, what do you sense?
I sense liberation. I can't, that's the word that comes, it's liberation. And so whenever I'm feeling in a place where making choices is difficult because of external circumstances, it reminds me that I am free and I am liberated and I can rise above any external influences to embody who I want to be in this life.
Beautiful. You know, the Carol have a special affinity toward round stones or soft or smooth stones. That's about as round and soft and smooth as you can get. So there's something there about it, how I'll just say it, liberation feels easy for you. It may not seem like that, but to have a facilitating stone has got to be good.
It's great. Yes. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you.
Alexandra.
Hi, everybody. A few years ago, I started to build the mesa and was not able to finish it. And in the last year, I took the training at the Four Winds, and as we initiate our West Kuyas, there should be one stone go again in the new mesa, and he was very he was totally round like an egg, and Alberto was embodying us to wrote the story. The stork left the baby over the wrong house, and this was the feeling that this kuya was going with, and my lifetime feeling was always this sad girl living in the universe. Oh, I didn't belong there, and this was the theme kept in this kuya, and I bring it down in the woods, made the sand painting, and on the third day I go there, the kuya was left, and at the very first moment I was, oh, what I'm gonna do now, and then I was jumping around, and I was funny and said, oh, the kuya is gone and the theme is gone, because I took a new one a few meters away where I was stumbling. I took to get there where I nearly broke my leg and fall. And I find this one, he's not round, and he has very, very flat sides. Even he's found in a river. And to me, the thing I'm sensing when I'm holding it is equality, because I feel equal when I took my place around the fire. There's no one before me, no one behind me. We are all around it. And I'm not this lost little girl anymore.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh. I mean,
Double rattle. We do a double rattle.
yeah. Okay. Show that up once again, Alexandra, if you would. Yeah, like you know, the beauty of that stone, and I don't want to be misconstrued. Round is a certain value. You know, shape is another value. And one of my things is taking the kuyas and knowing their history, like we're talking about, their stories, and knowing their shapes, knowing their energy, and that shape. Just say something for a minute, Alexandra, so on the speaker view it'll come up.
Mm-hmm.
Just there you go.
Yeah, he's heavy.
Yeah.
I don't know which material, or is it basalt, or I
Yeah.
have no
So,
idea.
yeah.
He's very heavy. He's soft,
Yeah.
but very glatt.
So,
Um,
yeah. Show it. Yeah. Like that. The other. Okay. So it's that triangular, that diamond
yeah.
shape. And
Yeah.
that is so so key to the Karo cosmology. I'll just say this really briefly. One interpretation of that is the Southern Cross. And so the Southern Cross is so central to the cosmology of seeing this guidance in the sky. It's not the North Star, it's the Southern Cross. It's an IU in and of itself with 5 stars comprising it. And in Machu Picchu, for those of you who have gone to Machu Picchu, right up in the ceremonial platform, here's this beautiful stone that's like quite large in the ground, and it points up to the sky in exactly the south direction and is that shape. And every time I go by that, anytime anyone goes by that, you can see the power of the orienting principle of the stars, and embodied in particular in this shape, this diamond shape. And so one of the things is to bring in this energy into the body, because not only is, I know you know this, but not only is the mesa out there and we're in a relationship with it, but the mesa and its energy is within us. And so seeing that shape, it reinforces the points of energy that we are as the luminous beings we exist as and we thrive as. So so this is just, I just wanted to say that because there's stories, and then there's shapes, and there's energy, and there's pure power within that stone, and a pure connection to one of the cornerstones, if you could say, of the whole Karo cosmology, and the guidance that's provided in these in the tradition and the lineage itself. It's just one of those things that's within us, and we can reawaken that awareness by connection with that diamond shape. So I'm glad you brought that to the sharing.
You got me goosebumps while you're sharing this, because a few days ago I was with Jacqueline Starfeather, taking a course with her, and she gives us an exercise to find special places. They are related to each chakra, and with the most chakras I took places I've been, but my first chakra, it came in my mind, Machu Picchu. I
Okay.
unfortunately never been there.
Yeah, you will.
Hopefully.
You will. Thank you for sharing that. Oh.
Anybody else out there have a kuya that would like to share? Through you, of course.
Yeah, I like to. This is my kuya. And when we started the program, I was looking, for the stones for my mesa. And I was kind of lost, because I said, when am I going to find them, and the colors and everything? But I have a place where I live where there are tons of trees and many, many, many stones, little stones. And I was walking one day, and this one literally was yelling at me. It's what I can describe. It's like, take me, take me, take me. And I said, oh my God. And I look at that, and I said, no, it might be my imagination. But, I was walking and it was like still yelling at me, hey, don't go, take me. So I pick it up, and since then it's been my kuya. But then I found another stone, which is kind of interesting, in the same place, and is unusual. And I take it as the stone that for me is kind of the meaning of the Mother Earth, because of the color, and it's really soft. And whenever I go, both want to go with me all the time. All the time. It's like if I am going to Denver or wherever, it's like I look at my mesa and they say, we are ready. I said, okay. So I take both of them always with me, always. But what is interesting, is when I walk in the path where there are so many trees and there are so many stones, but I found these two and some others in my mesa. What is interesting is like they are all there. And there are times when I am sitting there and they are literally talking to me and said, we want to go with you. And I look at all of them and I said, come on, there are thousands. How can I take you with me, So we kind of reached an agreement. And I said, okay, I can take all of you guys, but you will be like in my big mesa. My big mesa. So every day, whenever the weather permits, and allows, I walk over there. I said, okay, here I am. I'm visiting with you. This is our big mesa. Don't feel forgotten, or don't feel that I am not paying attention. I'm here. So what is it that you want to tell me today? And I just sit there and close my eyes, and there is this powerful energy that is all over me, enfolding the trees and everything. So that's what I want to share, because it's like unintentionally, but I have a big mesa plus my small mesa, but they are there. And when I don't go, I can feel when I don't go, because I am busy with other things, and there is a day which I should have been there, but I am not going. The next day, they let me know. It's like, you didn't come yesterday, huh? And I said, yeah, I didn't. I apologize, but I'm here. And one day I remember that I said, what is going to happen when I'm not in this world anymore? Who is going to take care of you? And I remember clearly that they say, we'll go with you. I said, really? Oh my God, it's going to be quite a journey, all these stones following me through the Rainbow Bridge. It will be like people will say, you're crazy, what is this? But they said, we'll go with you. And the same thing I hear from my trees, we'll be with you forever. So that's what I feel. That's what I love to walk in that place, because it's like my big mesa there.
That is so beautiful, Consuelo. I live right on the ocean, so does Wake. And we have a beach that's my favorite beach, and it's called Stonewall Beach. And it's just solid stones. And I have the same issue every time I go to the beach. So I feel like everybody wants to come home. And so I have a solution now. So thank you so much. I love that.
I love that too. I mean, sometimes when I'm walking with a dog out on the beaches, you'll see these little areas where there's a curve in the rock, and there's some stones that are tucked up against it before the sand is below. And they make such a beautiful, Pachamama does such an awesome job of crafting her own mesa again and again and again, these natural mesas that exist in the world. I mean, we have a whole different strategy of bringing things together, but they're homogenous in a certain way. They're really showing the energy of the place. So when Wilbert was saying the other day, he was saying like, hey, remember the mountains from which these stones came. Remember the energy that's there to support us. And they can be the famous mountains, they can be the Itu Apu, they can be your Ayu Apu, they can be a place that's anywhere where you are, but especially something near home, where Pachamama makes and remakes her mesa. and mesas, and you can just see the living qualities there and the vibrant, alive nature of it. Whenever I go out there, it's never the same twice. It's always shifting and changing, and there's such an inspiration to see her work in a natural way, you know, and we can be in relationship with that natural power of the mesa and the power of the earth herself, as she shows us her artistry in such a natural way. Anyway, yeah, we'll be quite a crowd, you know, all those stones going with you, that's for sure.
Carol. Oh, you're muted, my dear.
Good morning to everyone, particularly Wake. Thank you for being here. I just met him personally on a private journey that he helped me go on. So I journaled a while ago about this stone, and I'll show it to you if I may. It's pretty heavy. I haven't weighed it yet. But if I may, I'm just going to read just a quick synopsis, and then I'd love to hear y'all's opinion on it. So since childhood, I've collected rocks, and I've been incredibly interested in geology. And so this stone, when I found it and reflected upon it, it seemed to bring in both the spiritual and the scientific. And you know, in our IU reunion last November, we traveled to Utah, and I had the opportunity of going to Zion and Bryce, and it was incredible. It was awe-inspiring to be down in the level of like the Precambrian and Cambrian, and I think I have those correct, but each of the different amazing parks that are out there go progressively down. I believed that at each one of these, as I understand it, you go deeper into the history of the world, basically. So I found this stone. It was the only one like it. It was in a stream bed. And you would think that there would be lots of smooth stones like this, and you wonder how many times it's tumbled. And it also, I was like, did it start as a mountain? You know, I mean, if you think about it for millions of years, is it a part of something that was in the Himalayas before? I mean, you just don't know, which to me adds beautiful curiosity to it. I'm still getting to know it, and I'm going to ask y'all if you have any opinions on it, because I could certainly bring metaphor and personal story into this, but I think it belies more than that. It's incredibly soft, smooth. It feels feminine to me. It's deeply scarred, but I think that makes it much more intriguing. And you know, I wonder how in the world that could have happened. You know, was it, I don't know. I don't even have a supposition. It reminds me, when I go to my mesa and I see it, of the infinite time. You know, we try to connect with that, but in going to those sacred areas in Utah, you really do connect with the infinite nature of time. Recently, I was helped to present a conversation about our Earth Keeper rights, and was exploring some additional information. And the Earth is not round. It's what's called an oblate spheroid. And I just thought that this was intriguing. It's certainly not this flat. But anyway, it brought that to mind as well. So with that said, that was the end of my journaling, and anything that anybody might have to add to this, I would love it. Wake, I know you have an opinion. I can see the grin on your face.
Well, I'm sure. I love the shape. I love the representation of the earth. And to me, it just like calls out Yapa, lightning, of the lightning strike of realization, the lightning strikes. So much of Cusco, you know, Sacsayhuaman up above, those walls are made in the shape of lightning, and the lightning has such a connection to the spiritual path. You know, I'm sure you've heard before there were classes, there was lightning, and shaman were recognized by how they were able to call it, either consciously or unconsciously to them. So the fact that you have an earth lightning stone as being one interpretation, that was simply the first thing that came to my mind, and what a gift to have that ability, to have the stable living earth, and to have swift change and all the creativity and burst of energy of a lightning strike within it.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Who else has something to share about it? Terrell Stone.
I do. Terrell, I love that stone. First of all, it's powerful. But the first thing that came to my mind was the sutures, the cranial sutures.
Ah.
I looked at it, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just like, looks just like the cranial sutures up here. So I was like, wow, that's a lot of spirit energy.
Sorry, I was muted. Did either Alexander or Namrata want to say something about Terrell's stone?
Oh yeah, good.
Go ahead, Namrata.
Yeah, hi, good evening. Good evening here and good morning to you all. Okay, I just want to share my stone. Actually, this is amethyst, if you can see. It's a small stone, but it's amethyst. I was in New Zealand and I was working in a kindergarten school. When I was leaving from New Zealand, the owner of the school, she gifted me this. And then she told me that you keep it with you, it will help you. And I was looking at the stone and thinking how a stone could help me, you see, like I had no clue. I just kept it as a token of appreciation and love. And when I was looking for a south stone, and this stone called me. And for years, like she gave me in 2008. And since then, it was in my wardrobe. And then I opened the wardrobe and looked for it, and I found it safe, picked it and kept it in my mesa. It's a very special stone. Whenever I hold it in my hand, it gives me a lot of peace, and I feel that everything is working for me. I mean, the oneness I get. Even now I'm feeling, you know, the peace and the oneness. So that's the story of this beautiful amethyst. And also, you know, I thought, you know, how could I keep crystal in my mesa? But then, like, this stone actually called for, no, this stone wanted to be in the mesa. Thank you.
Thanks, Namrata. Apparently that stone can take care of itself. Thank you very much.
You know, that reminds me of some people are called to so many different types of shamanic intervention, like personal healing, and then it just feels like more of a world work, you know, more of a global kind of work with that, how you're expressing your relationship with a stone. And it just illustrates for me what different callings we each have and how our stones support that work and teach us and lead us to the next opportunity.
Did anybody else want to say anything to Terrell? If anybody wants to share with Terrell, Francine, and I'm not, oh, Celine, did you want to share a stone of your own, or? Okay, so we'll let Francine share for Terrell and then we'll come back to Celine.
Just really quickly, the first thing I thought of was that it was like this ancient egg just waiting to birth a new life, a new way of being. It just was like ready to crack open. That was my first thought.
I wanted to chime in and say one more thing. It just came up about imperfection. Like there's this whole idea of the perfect and the imperfect. I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but sometimes like I'll have a cloth and I'll notice, oh, there's some imperfection there or a stone. And I'll just say it's not perfect in a sense that it was. And so I guess I love the imperfectness of that. If you take a total round sphere as unblemished as being perfect, and how it so clearly represents who we are, or at least who I am. I mean, I guess I can say who we are in our own ways. You know, the imperfections provide beauty, provide lessons, provide insights. Okay, my one little story was Don Francisco gave me 2 stones. And so I was working them and, you know, kind of making use of them. And then one day I worked it so hard, it chipped, you know, one of these big, heavy stones chipped. And so I was like distraught, like these perfect stones. I mean, they were perfect in the way that they came to me. They were just, you know, that I messed it up. You know, that I worked it in such a way where it cracked. So I remember going back to him and I just said, I think I wanted a refund. You know, I think I wanted like, you know, him to replace it. And, you know, like I'd worked it to its, I'd inappropriately engaged in the energy of work with this. And he just kind of laughed at me and just said, you know, like this is, I mean, he didn't really say anything to me. He just like laughed and sent me away. And basically that what I got was, you know, that imperfection is a part of this, is such a big part of it. And can we embrace ourselves and each other in these imperfect states, even if we cause the imperfection, you know, like, can I recover from that? And, you know, can I find a new meaning and a new inspiration from that? So it was a little bit humbling to just mess up something a teacher of mine had given me, and felt like my impact on it was less than how it had been given to me. And the impression I got was that it was just part of the process. I'm still working with it. It looks imperfect to me, but I'm still, you know, I find my thumb going to that spot because everything else is nice and smooth, but it's, you know, it's craggy right there. So, you know, I'm loving the craggy part. That's the invite I get from today. But thanks for showing your imperfections, if they are at all.
I want to make sure that everyone who wants to share a stone for the first time gets a chance to share. So let me just have Celine share, and then we can come back to Terrell and Luz.
Hello, everyone. So the stone that I'd like to share today are stones that I got from near where I grew up. So I live in Paris right now, but I grew up in the Alps. There is this little hill near my home, and usually I know you've mentioned earlier how, you know, a lot of stone wanted to come home with you, with all of you. For me, it's a little bit the contrary, since I've been asking, you know, nature and things, you know, to come with me. I don't receive the authorization to do so often. So when I do, I'm very grateful. So what was very special about this walk back home is that I was allowed to take a lot of stones. And so here are the stones.
Mm.
And what's very interesting is that I love the smell of it. Like they smell like very mineral and still a little bit of dirt, even though I clean them, but they still smell. So I also get the power through the scent. And what's interesting as well is that when in nature, they make design. So it's like natural art on the ground. It's beautiful. So much so that an artist renowned in Europe came to my town where I grew up to build little shelter as art. And so he used the stones to make the design, to make a design. So you have big lines, you know, inside the home he created. So I thought it was interesting that, you know, an artist had this connection. But for me, it was very interesting because I was very called to take them home. And I was like, oh my God, how am I going to bring them back to Paris? You know, all those stones in the plane. And so some I left at my parents, and I have this, and you were talking about the duo. So I have those one. And then I have those two little guys. So it's interesting. And I don't think, I mean, it's interesting how they match in a way, like you know, as you explained, I realized just right now. And then I have this final one here, and in a way it's a match as well. I mean, it's half. And before, so this morning I took a walk in nature, and I didn't have the permission to take a stone yet from where I live. I've been living here for almost 2 years. And this morning I had the authorization to take a stone, and I'm just realizing now, so I'm going to show it to you, how in a way it is similar, but I'm just realizing now. So there's an echo. But yeah, so thank you so much. And I think when those stones from my home, when they're on my altar, it's anchoring me, it's bringing me back to where I grew up and where I was very connected to nature as a kid. So it brings me back to this, I feel grounded and I feel anchored in my spiritual practice, because I think, you know, I mean, I know as a kid, I was very connected to stone, and I was always looking at them, imagining that there was other worlds inside of them. That was something very, very, very intense for me. Like, I mean, intense, like profound. And like, I believe that there were other worlds in the stones. So yeah, so thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to say something. That is a great sharing. I love the pairs. I love that you're. I hear that you're asking for permission. You know that you're getting permission from time to time, and not all the time. And the other thing I just wanted to say was, I made the former comment about smooth stones. Well, there's also a value, as you well know, to the rough, worked stone. That's Salka energy. That's the wild energy. That's the wild Pachamama. When I asked one of the teachers, like, what does Pachamama really mean? Well, Pachamama is the entirety of Pachamama, the entirety of Mother Earth, but it's most especially the wild part, the unworked part, the unwalked on part, the part that nature crafted and is living through. And those stones remind me of that. Those stones, the rough, the wild, is also an important part of the Mesa or medicine bundle, can bring a creativity to you and to your work that really is a part of Mother Nature herself. Thanks for sharing that.
Luz, and then Robert.
Thank you. So Wade, I'm wondering what it means when a kuya breaks. Like, are we supposed to replace it, or do you keep both parts of it in the stone? Do you just dialogue with it and find out what it wants, and or what it could mean?
What do you sense?
Well, I haven't, because it happened this morning while we were. So I haven't had a minute to say, so what is going on? But yeah, it completely broke. And
how do you feel about it?
Well, it's interesting because I had been thinking, it's a stone that has never been used by a client before. And I'm a little bit embarrassed to say it, but when it's by itself, it's very phallic looking, when it's whole. And I had been thinking, well, maybe that's maybe people are afraid of that or not comfortable with that. So I guess I'll sit with her and figure out. Yeah, it's a she. I'll sit with her and see what it is she wants. But I feel like something was broken open here, at the very least, right?
On a literal level, it's a breakthrough.
Yeah.
On a literal level and an energetic level, there's a breakthrough right there, you know,
Oh.
and whether it has to do with your client work, I get a sense it's more having to do with you, you know,
Oh.
like you are ready for that next. It's like a lightning strike in a certain way, that next way of like not hold on, you know, just release it, go with it. And it'll lead you in a really positive way. But it's a shock. It's a shock in my experience. You know, you may need a little recovery time, but it's on its essence, essential level, it's a breakthrough in your life, in your spiritual path.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, there's something about giving yourself permission to just be with what is broken and to not feel like you need to fix it. And I mean, I broke a stone at one point and both pieces wanted to stay in my mesa. So it's, you know, I put them together so that they kind of look like one stone when I close the mesa, but they're always in two pieces when I open it. So, but yeah, it's just about, I just decided to get used to what was broken.
Right. Okay. I had this amazing little piece. It was a clay piece and it was so beautiful. It was a condor and a jaguar both together, quite unusual piece. And so I used it a lot, and it wasn't a stone, but it was a worked piece. But I had it next to the fire because I wanted it to be close to all the energy. Something happened and it went in. And I just thought, well, the next morning, it was during the classes. The next morning, I'm going to go and retrieve it. And there it was, because I figured it was fired already. It's going to be okay. There it was at the bottom, and I reached down to it, and it was dust. It just went to dust, and I just felt like, oh my gosh. Anyway, it was a simple lesson to me about, you know, holding something so dear and precious that I was going to be affected. You know, I felt better because I had it, and I was affected by its loss. So that was a big thing. I hold every, you know, the exceptionally special possessions that I have in a little bit more light fashion as a result. But I miss that little piece. I'm kind of over it now, but you brought it back up. So now I have to work with it a little bit. But it was nice. Things pass through our lives. Things pass through our mesas. Even, well, I know there may be some people who have their mesas as formed, and that's fine. I'm just saying over time, there's likely to be a flow in and out. And that flow is very interesting. That's a very big teaching tool right there.
Robert. Oh, still muted.
These are just stones that I found in my backyard. But what's so interesting is, you know, when you had us going over our heads, this one very definitely hits my sixth, third eye, and this one more in my third. So it's kind of interesting to run that through our energy field and see where they sit. So I think I'm going to be taking this stone into meditation in that third eye quite often now. The other thing I wanted to say when you mentioned about perfection, I think we're really funny in our lives is our lives are about story. There's nothing in our lives that's perfectly formed. It's all in process. So I think it's kind of, it's useful to not worry about perfection of shape, but more as how does this fit in my story?
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
And this has been very interesting today. Thank you very much, Wade.
You're welcome. I knew it would be better having people share. You know, because we all have so much experience in this work, in our path of spirit. It feels like a special, honored place to be among the circle today.
We are certainly honored to have you.
Well, Tricia, I know that is there anybody, I've got something, but you haven't shared yours, have you?
I have not. Is there anybody else out there who has a stone that you want to? Oh, I see Connie and Segun. So let's do that before me.
Okay.
Go, Connie.
Okay, before, this is not really my stone. My husband was on the police force. And I don't know where he found this stone, but he used to have it in his pocket. Very, very smooth. And it's green and it's flat. It's not round and it's flat. And I don't know anything about stones. And I go, okay, well, he passed away about 15 years ago. And this is what I carry in my mesa now. And I hadn't really thought about it, of the background of it. But no one, when I do healing, no one ever chooses this one. I don't know why, because it fits perfectly on the palm of your hand. And it isn't, you know, so you could go around and do your things and nobody would be aware that you're carrying a stone. But anyway, that's the story of my green. It's green with different colors. Thank you. Thank you, Wade.
Thank you for sharing that, Connie. Do you always carry stones that match your outfits?
Oh, I never even thought of that. Please.
I thought the same thing. I was like, wow, it matches perfectly.
Oh, I'll have to do that now.
It's quite an energetic ensemble. That's all I can say. You're in a tune with it, without doubt. The beautiful stone. Thank you for sharing that, and the deep connection with your husband too. That's nice. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I was recently taking a course on, you know, what people put in their mesa. And that stone is a perfect example of, you know, maybe people don't pick that stone because it's your husband. And it's how your husband is represented in your mesa. And it's not there for anybody to choose as a healing stone. It's just because your husband wants to be present in your life and in your mesa. And he's not anybody else's business, you know, so it's really interesting. I love that.
Thank you, Tricia. I never thought of it like that.
Segun.
Yeah. Hi, good evening. Good afternoon, good morning, everybody, and good evening, Namrata et al. Yeah, I picked up this stone. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah.
Yeah, I went on holiday to Spain about a few years ago, and this was before the training. And while I was on the beach, I found this stone. It kind of like called to me, and it was strange because it's got veins. It's green and it's got veins, and I was really so I had it in my. I have a pull along, and I've always had it in that pull along suitcase until after the training. Even when we were doing the training, I didn't remember. So after the training, I was going through, and I said, oh yeah, this is my tracking stone. And he's been my tracking stone since then. So yeah. So but it's very good. It's energetic. Every time I hold it like this in my palm, I always feel some form of connection and energy pull from it. Like I found it on the beach. Thank you.
Segun, could you hold it a little bit farther away from the camera just so I could see the veins on there? like about where your face. Yeah, hold it away. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, beautiful. Say something, Segun.
Sorry?
So that he can, if you put it on a speaker view, you can see it. But yeah, that's a beautiful stone. I've got Segun on pin, so I can see the stone perfectly.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, but yeah, it's beautiful.
Thank you for sharing that. The tracking is a nice part. You follow the veins then.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Beautiful. So I guess I have one stone that that I thought I would share. Two of them actually jumped out. I had one that I was planning to share, and then I opened my mesa, and I was telling Wake and Mayumi before we started the call that I opened my mesa very gently on a flat surface, and this other stone just jumped out, you know, on a flat surface. So, so I'm going to share both. So this stone here is almost perfectly round, and it was given to me by a really dear friend of mine who was a medical doctor, and she's one of those people who was just sort of brilliant at everything she did. She was a gardener and a painter and a jeweler, and while she was in medical school, she got bored, and so she went to law school and got her law degree at the same time. And her house was just this magical place. She had collections everywhere. She had collections of crystals. She had collections of Huichol paintings in one part of her house, and crystals in another part of her house, and blue glass in another part of her house. It was like going to a museum. And in her garden, she had a rock garden of perfectly round stones that she had gathered when she traveled all over the world. So if you can imagine a garden of perfectly round stones of all different sizes, it was just completely magical. And she was a really, really dear friend of mine. And she makes me cry. She died of an opiate overdose. She was a medical doctor, and she got addicted to OxyContin. And her 28-year-old daughter found her dead on her bedroom floor. And so this is a woman who literally had everything and was gifted and talented and smart and beautiful. And so this stone for me represents untimely death. And it represents, so what I was saying also before this call started, that I've probably had 20 different people pick this stone during healing sessions, and 20 out of 20 have had addiction issues. So not one person who has ever picked this stone has not had an addiction issue in their life. And it's interesting to me that it's perfectly round. You know, it's like, it almost is like the perfection where you can't really see that there's imperfection. And that was like my friend's life, where there was perfection where no one else could see what was imperfect. And so when someone picks this stone, I ask them, so what's going on in your life right now? What are you doing that you know you shouldn't be doing right now? Like there's something going on in your life that's going to cause trouble if you don't stop. And 20 out of 20 times, they've sort of looked at me like, how did you know that? And I say, because the stone you picked just told me. And so this is just really, and it's also a south stone, which means that it's connected to the earth. It's very connected to earthly things, which addiction is definitely an earthly thing. So that is one stone that's very powerful for me. And the other stone is this one, which is not perfect. It actually, to me, sort of looks like a meteorite. It's black, and it's got little white chips in it. And this is an east stone. And I kind of call it a galaxy stone because it reminds me of something that would have come out of the deep galaxy. And this is my medicine woman stone. And this has my healing medicine in it. So when Wake said like our whole mesa and all of our stones have our light in it, this is particular to my wisdom. And when this stone came back, my mother died 30 years ago, and I did not heal my relationship with her until this year. So she died 30 years ago. We just healed our relationship this year. And this stone said to me this year that I now have access to my own medicine because I finally healed my relationship with my mother. So it's just really interesting how stones will speak to you and tell you what their gifts are for you if you listen. So those are my 2 stones.
It's beautiful how heartfelt that is, Tricia. Not only for you, but for us. That's great.
I agree. I couldn't help but think as you were talking how, I don't know how I was just overwhelmed with how much she loved you too. Like you spoke so eloquently about her, but the fact that she gave you something that still helps you today is such a gift to you from her. And I could just feel that two-way. I don't have the right words for it. I'm sorry, but it was like as much as you loved her, she loved you back.
Yeah, it's definitely true. And I mean, she almost had her medical license taken away several times. And I went to court for her. I've been a clinician myself for 40 years. And I went to court for her and spoke to the medical board to help her to keep her license, because she was one of the most brilliant doctors. I mean, I said I would go to her wasted with, I mean, I said this to the medical board, like I would go to her under the influence of drugs and still trust what she says more than I would trust most any other medical doctor. And they actually let her keep her license twice, and then she died. So, I mean, it was just a tragic story, but the gift was clear, that there are no safe levels of messing around with stuff like that. And yeah, so it's beautiful that she's in my mesa and she's still, she couldn't save herself, but she's saving a lot of other people now. Yeah.
That's so cool. If I may, there's another stone I want to show you.
Let's see if there's anybody else out there that on view here, if there's anyone who has not shared. And we're actually getting towards the end of our session. We have a few things left that we want to do. So Wake, what did you have in mind for a closing today? I know Mayumi has a reading.
Yeah, let me finish my part with my sharing.
Sure.
If you like.
Yep, absolutely.
You think I've shared a lot, but I brought something. I just was thinking, like, what do I really want to share? And when we worked up the description, it said share something from your mesa. It could be a kuya, it could be something else in there, even the cloth itself. So I took that kind of literally, and I usually show my runt of the litter cloth that's become my inner cloth. But today I thought I would show my waraka. And the reason I'm showing this is that it's such a simple instrument. And it's what I use to tie my mesa often. And I got it on my very first trip to Peru. Like I said, I went into this kind of backwards. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I was going to a personal growth class, and the first question that was asked was, what kind of body work do you do? Because it was a hands-on kind of a healing arrangement. And I said, well, in my profession, if you touch someone, you get disbarred or sued. So I was out of my element from the beginning. And when I was traveling around Asangate with my 2 sons, we noticed some of the small boys, and they were braiding these warakas the woven cords, that has a little place where you can put your stone, and it's used as a herding tool. And so my story about that is the boys, of course, my sons, were dealing with their contemporaries who were crafting these, and they each got one. And so they were putting stones in here and experimenting. And never have the Yama been so safe and in their experimentations, and never have fellow hikers been so much in danger. But it just was. And I looked a little bit more closely, and I noticed this pattern. And so, as Tricia says, I deal with cloth quite a bit, and I asked Nilda Kayapuna about the meaning of it. Does it have any meaning? And she said, yeah, it does. Like this little thread, it shows a path, and it's the path or the trail up to Asangate. So that got me thinking like, there's a whole story about a path to Asangate that's kind of hidden in or integrated into this braided waraka that's meant for a tool. Of course, the Karo use it, and they have some other versions that have quite big tails on them, and colored cloth as well. And they'll use them for ceremonial purposes. The other thing John Francisco did on a camping trip was they were whipping one another. They each had these, and they were just like, playing with it and just whipping one another. So I got the idea of the communication of cloth. I got the idea of the multi-use of cloth and woven and braided objects. And I just got the idea about how, with essential shamanic tools, we can remake the universe, and we can craft our own cosmos and contribute in some small way to the health of the Kausai Pacha itself. So I love to experiment. I love to find out things, whether they're actually real or not. I work with a lot of objects, and cloth in particular, and investigate the meaning and just see what speaks. And I know that our mesas are held with cloth, and maybe sometime we could get together and discuss some of the aspects of the cosmology within the symbols of the cloth, and just the different kind of uses of the layers of cloth in your shamanic work. But I just wanted to bring in something simple, something that has a memory for me of an early time in my awareness of the tradition, and a time when everything was wonder. I guess that's the last thing now, is that, as we become more mature in our shamanic work, there has to be for me anyway, there has to be a reconnection or a rediscovery with what that initial spark of inspiration is. And I find that through the Mesa. Before, everything was new. And the first transmission was a complete surprise, as were many other aspects in the work itself. But I'm on an exploration, and I benefited so much by hearing the different connections that each one of you have who have shared with different parts of your Mesa. And I think that's what I'm looking for. My final thing is, my hope was that when we are stewards of these sacred bundles and of the lineage itself, that it would thrive during our watch. And what I'm most delighted to find the shamanic communities that are shared in this particular way, because I feel the integrity of the exploration. I feel the integrity of wanting to represent the lineage in a really meaningful way. And I'm delighted that I'm learning about people's relationship with not only the Mesa, but their spiritual path. and that it's a living process. And I want to be a part of that living process. And I'm happy that each one of you are engaging it in your own ways. And together we're stronger. You know, that's what I know. I think that's what we can experience is together we're stronger because we're each weaving our own fabric of the lineage itself.
So I want to say thank you. And also, if you take that, tell us what that's called again.
Waraka.
A Waraka.
Yeah.
The segment that you held up to the screen looks exactly like a strand of DNA.
Okay.
So if you look at that, somebody said it's like a path, but
Yeah.
when you held it up, it looks like a strand of DNA. So that's really interesting too.
Yeah. And each community has their own woven version of this. I wanted to do a book about it. I was working with Nilda about it, and then the pandemic happened and an earthquake or two, and you know it hasn't occurred yet. But yeah, so there's DNA woven into this. Anyway, I also, this is just a preview of coming attractions. I put my mesa down and I tie this up in a certain way and I stand back from it and I throw it on the mesa with the kuyas and I see where it lands. We can explore more of that later.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for being here, Wake. And we have a couple
welcome.
things that we want to do to just wrap up today.
Yeah.
I want to introduce Mayumi Beckers, who is another one of the founder circle of Shaman's Directory. And Mayumi's in the Netherlands. And Mayumi found a beautiful reading that goes along with our conversation about stone today. And she's going to share that reading with you. And then we're going to tell you a little bit about the upcoming programs with Shaman's Directory in the next month. So I'm going to share my screen if I can find the right image here. Hold on 1 second. Okay.
So actually, yeah, this article is written by Coral Austin Hyatt, and also the photo is from him. And we came across to this article, I think, through Janet, who's also in the founding circle. And we thought it was based on the theme of today. We thought it was great to read some excerpts from this article. So I will share that with you today. And this picture is also quite beautiful. It's a sacred stone around Machu Picchu, and it sort of reflects, or it has the same shape as the mountain behind it, which is the Yanantin. So again, the masculine, feminine type of energies. So while I'll read this article, you can just gaze into these mountains. And I hope you enjoy it. The sacred practices of the Peruvian Andes are earth-honoring traditions. While they strive to live in harmony with the always fluid rhythms of our living cosmos, above all, they honor Pachamama, Mother Earth. I have often heard them say, "We are sitting in the lap of Pachamama. She births and nurtures us all." Stones in the mesa are called cuyas, which comes from a Quechua verb meaning to care for deeply. This heartfelt connection, nurtured over time, opens portals to the living cosmos all around us. With the aid of these stones and the ritual practices that are part of the tradition, the Paco cultivates a profound relationship with places and beings of power and wisdom. A Paco's power is not so much held within, as woven on the loom of relationships they have patiently nurtured over time. These relationships can then be brought into service to help their family, their community, and the world. Don Sebastian Pulgar, the son of one of the Pacos I met on my first trip, is a Quedo master and good friend. We have traveled to sacred sites in the Andes together for years. Apu Azangate is considered by the Quedo as the most important mountain in the Cusco region. One day on the slopes of Azangate at 40,000 feet, he instructed me to wander out to find 2 stones, one black one for the Pachamama and one white one for the Apu, the spirit of a mountain. You're receiving a special strength from the Apu, The stones are in our hands, but what we are having a communion with is not the stones, but the force that comes through them from the Apu. Do not doubt, do not hesitate. If it chooses you, it is coming with you. The stones will give you immense power and strength for your path and for your life. And remember, you must kiss the ground 3 times, putting your fingers to your lips and then to the ground 3 times for each stone. Every stone shares in the essence of the place it comes from. They can be thought of as a family, as part of the family or tribe originating in that place. Our kuyas can be thought of small holograms of the land or living fractal of the whole. Just as a stone, the kuya is an energetic fractal of the mountain or sacred place. The mesa is a microcosm of the Paco's world. What Don Sebastian offered me on that day in Ausangate was not answers, but something far more profound. Through the stone, he was opening a portal of connection only you can make to the ever-present living mystery of creation that is older than humanity itself. We were always made for this. When we step past our unculturated doubt, we are able to open to the world of awe, beauty, wisdom, and joy we easily access as children. Play, curiosity, and vulnerability are part of the practice. The all-pervasive, intelligent fabric of the world responds to our deep intentional communion. It manifests as ideas, noetic knowings, epiphanies, synchronicities, and a sense of being at home in the world. As we reanimate the world, we reanimate ourselves. So that was an excerpt, and I hope that Tricia put the link of this beautiful article, or I can put it in the chat. So you have it all.
I have not put it in the chat yet.
There it is. So you can have a read through. And as other things, because I thought it's really great as an addition to what Wake is teaching us on the stones to read these excerpts. And I think what is also worth is to share with you in our closing is also the next events for Shaman's Directory. Wake, thank you very much for this beautiful first live event that we're having with this community, and hopefully we're growing as a group. And thank you. And for the next events, we've got a few things coming up. Also, if you want to review this event, you can watch it again on our YouTube channel. As Tricia mentioned, there's just one there. We're just brand new, so we're slowly growing, and you're also welcome to share it. And for the next events, Shaman's Directory will be hosting bi-weekly events on every second and fourth Saturday of the month. And at times we will also have events on different days of the week. And there's actually one coming up on a Thursday. So on this coming Thursday, March 17th, we will have a jointly held event with our ambassador, Imelda Almqvist. And for those who don't know her, she's a Dutch painter and an international teacher of sacred art and the Seder Old Norse traditions, which is more the ancestral wisdom teachings of Northern Europe. And she's very passionate about rites of passage work with children. And she will be offering on that day a little mini workshop on pandemic support for children. And she will address different age groups and discuss how they are impacted by the pandemic and times of global anxiety, as well as offering some shamanic tools for the times we live in. And if you're interested, we will put the link in the chat so you can have a look and join us on Thursday. And lastly, for another event for this month in March, which is then the fourth Saturday on March 26, we will have Stephanie Witkowski from 7000.org, who will be speaking about preserving endangered languages. And 7000.org is an organization that creates free online language learning courses engaging children, elders, and adults of all ages in indigenous, minority, and refugee communities to keep their languages alive. So these are just some information about our upcoming events, and we really hope that you will be joining us, or to just reach out to us for any future communications that we will have in our mills for other communications on the events. So we will hope that we see your faces again. And as lastly, I think, like also in the current times that we're living in, I think it might be nice and worthy that we kind of connect with each other, since we are in this circle, and an intimate circle, and having all our mesas and our stones with us. And because there's quite some people who are having some difficulties in these times. And I thought it would be nice to close all together this session. And it won't take long, but I thought maybe we can close our eyes and honor all of these people that may need some light, loving energy. And we might want to close our eyes and take a couple of deep breaths and connect with each other in this circle, and have our feet on the ground. And you can hold your hands to connect in this circle, and have your crown connected with the upper row with Hanak Pacha. And just take some deep breaths and let us connect, and imagine that we are around a sacred fire. And let us bring our hearts together. And let us imagine that we are creating this luminous web of light, of energy around the earth, touching all the places and all the peoples who need this most at this time. And let us just give our prayers and our intentions for all these people and all the living beings, that there will be peace and non-violence, truth and clarity, and healing. And take another breath, and then we can come back. Thank you.
As we say around here, aho. Hope to see you all soon. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wake. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you so much, Wake. Marvelous. Appreciate you so much. And all the sharing was amazing.
Thank you. And the
love
Carol
it.
never say goodbye. They say Tupanachi's Kama, which is I'll experience you again in some form. A memory, a dream, an encounter. I'll write it in there. Tupanachi's Kama.
Fibonacci's comma. Marvelous.
Thank you, Wake.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.